just genuinely wanted to be an advocate for other people, because my dad had actually, throughout my childhood, he was overweight his whole life, my whole life. He had 4 heart attacks. I think the first one when I was in junior high. And I think, like most people, I looked up to my dad as being the toughest guy I knew. And when
Mm.
I was 11 or 12, and I was looking at him in a hospital bed, just completely helpless, hooked up to these machines, and he just looked weak. For the first time, like, the toughest guy I knew looked like he was really weak and vulnerable, and he wasn't bulletproof. And it scared me a lot. And it was something that I knew, like, that didn't happen by accident. That happened, intentionally, or not intentionally, but it happened over the course of time, just by the actions that he was continuing to compound. It was the decisions that he was making that put him there, and that put him back there a couple years later, and a couple years later, and he
Mm.
had 4 heart attacks. And
Wow.
I was in college. Yeah.
What's up, guys? Hope you're having a fantastic day. Today, we have an awesome episode with Lexi Johnson. She's a first Phorm athlete. Today's episode of Why First Phorm Outdoors. I really hope you enjoy it. She does an excellent job of explaining why she's part of First Phorm, why she has enjoyed the journey. She was rejected multiple times before she was able to get into the program. You'll find out more about that on the episode. But guys, trust me, you want to get into the First Phorm Outdoors community after you hear about Lexi's, basically her journey from not being a part of First Phorm to starting to use First Phorm, and now being a First Phorm athlete and a bigger part of the community. So with that being said, guys, tune into this episode, enjoy it, follow the links all down below. If you're interested in anything First Phorm related or getting into the First Phorm Outdoors community, we want to see you there. You don't have to be a hunter. You don't have to be a fisherman. You can enjoy mountain biking, hiking, camping, whatever. You can be big into archery. You can be big into rifles, pistols, fishing, whatever it is, guys. We want you in the community. Check out the link down below. Let them know RedBeard sent you. Enjoy this episode. Here we go with Lexi Johnson. Welcome back to the RedBeard Outdoors Podcast. I'm Jonathan, your host, and we have a special guest for you guys today as part of the Why First Phorm and First Phorm Outdoors series here on the podcast. We've got Lexi Johnson. Now, Lexi has had an amazing journey through fitness and health, has learned a lot along the way, has chosen First Phorm as her partner in that journey, and then in turn, she became the Athlete of the Year for First Phorm and was announced last year at Summer Smash. And so you guys might recognize her from that. But basically, she just absolutely loves helping people enjoy life, getting happy, healthy, fit, and more than anything, have those long-term lasting results that we preach about at First Phorm. So with that being said, Lexi, for people that don't know who you are, who are you?
Well, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Yeah, that was a very flattering entry. So I'm Lexi. I was a former dental hygienist, actually. Just 4 years ago, I was more so on the recreational fitness side of things. I just did it as an outlet that I really enjoyed. And like I said, I was a hygienist that didn't necessarily feel fulfilled in what I did. But I had always been active throughout my childhood, just upbringing. Fitness was something that was just brought me a lot of joy, and a good outlet for me. And then about that time, in 2020, when COVID hit, most of us, like, shit hit the fan. Are we allowed to cuss here?
You're good. You're good.
um yeah, so just things were different. So that outlet that I had, that I was going to the gym, before I would go to work, that was stripped from me. My gym shut down, and it actually never opened back up. It was a really
Mm.
small gym, and they actually, closed for good, which is so sad. But to then, we just pivoted. My husband and I started working out in our unfinished basement. We had like Facebook Marketplace dumbbells. So it was a very shabby setup. And at this point, I probably had 3,000 followers on Instagram, super modest. And I had never posted about fitness whatsoever. I was terrified, but I don't know. I had recently finished 75 hard, was introduced to that, and just so bought in on the First Phorm culture. And we can talk about that later, but I just believed in the mission. I loved what they brought to the table. I felt like for once the fitness industry was represented by
Mm.
people that felt similar to me, and, aligned well with the way that I felt about fitness and the approach. So something about finishing 75 hard kind of gave me the courage, and just empowered me to think that I could maybe make a difference in someone's life. Along the same time, my dad had a huge transformation. And that's really what started me and gave me the belief that I could help someone, or that I just genuinely wanted to be an advocate for other people. Because my dad had actually, throughout my childhood, he was overweight his whole life, my whole life. He had 4 heart attacks. I think the first one when I was in junior high. And I think, like most people, I looked up to my dad as being the toughest guy I knew. And when
Mm,
I was 11 or 12, and I was looking at him in a hospital bed, just completely helpless, hooked up to these machines, and he just looked weak. For the first time, like, the toughest guy I knew looked like he was really weak and vulnerable, and he wasn't bulletproof. And it scared me a lot. And it was something that I knew, like, that didn't happen by accident. That happened, intentionally, or not intentionally, but it happened over the course of time, just by the actions that he was continuing to compound. It was the decisions that he was making that put him there, and that put him back there a couple years later, and a couple years later, and he
mm,
had 4 heart attacks. And
wow.
I was in college. Yeah, he's the toughest guy I know. You can't kill him. 4 heart attacks couldn't take him down. Um, but I was in college, and I remember, like, anytime I would bring it up to him, because I wasn't in a position that I could necessarily help him, or I didn't feel confident enough to do that. But I knew that
Right.
something needed to be done. And I remember telling him, and I would get so upset, like, trying to vocalize it. I would be frustrated, so I would cry. And then, like, you just don't take someone seriously when they break down crying, having this conversation. So it would just never progress. It never came to anything. And I remember thinking, like, this is suicide by lifestyle. This is just a slow and painful suicide that he's choosing. So when I was in college, I was home for Thanksgiving break, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to write him a letter. That way I can get everything I need to say out. And, he can read it. He's not going to interrupt. I'm not going to break down. I'll just go back to school. So I wrote him a letter. I left it on his nightstand, and I drove back to school, and he called me. He read that. And I said in it, like, selfishly, I want you to be around. I want you to, see another World Series with me. I want you to meet my kids one day. I want you to walk down the aisle. I think my line exactly was, I know that this is going to be hard. I know it's going to suck to work out when you don't want to, and to eat the foods that you don't always necessarily want to, but I think that it would suck a lot more to walk down the aisle without your dad.
Mm,
And I'm like, I'm not a parent yet, but I'm sure, coming from someone like that, roots it back to something that's much bigger than him. Because I was selfishly asking him, like, I need my dad to be around for
mm,
longer. And eventually, like any fitness journey and lifestyle change, it didn't happen. Like, that was when I was in college, and it really took several years. I kind of always tell it in the expedited version, because it's much faster and more appealing to just put that side by side. But no one sees those little decisions over time. No one sees the sacrifices that are made. But it's not the sexy stuff that you see on Instagram that goes viral, but it's those little decisions that, and those hard conversations that we have. So my dad gave that letter back to me when he lost 100 pounds. So I have
wow.
that. um, and I have on my Instagram, I'll plug that or tell you about that later, but I have it on a pinned video on my page of me reading that letter. Um, so about this time, my dad had lost all this weight. He ended up losing about 120 pounds, and has kept it off since. I mean, he's fluctuated a little bit, but pretty much maintained since then. And I remember watching that all transpire, and he's a fireman. So he got a promotion at his job. He's fire captain. At that point, his relationship with my mom just, like, flourished. They were empty nesters for the first time ever, and they just seemed to be having fun. Like, they just enjoyed each other so much. He was playing basketball in the driveway with my nieces and nephews, and I was like, they're only going to remember their grandpa in this light, in this being an active
Hmm.
participant in their life. And I just thought, like, it's not just about him. It doesn't just stop with him. Him losing that weight and making that decision impacted everybody around it. And I was a beneficiary to that change. So I just remember thinking, like, if I could help one person do that, then it wouldn't just stop with that one person, because their kids could have a better mom or dad, and their employees could have, a better boss, and their students could have a better teacher. Like, whatever roles they play, everybody that they come into contact with is better off, because they start taking care of themselves. And I feel like looking at that way just made it seem more manageable, that a girl from a town of 400 could maybe make a difference. And because if you set out and you say you want to change the world, especially I'm from a hometown, or my hometown doesn't even have a stoplight. Like that just it doesn't seem feasible. But looking at it that way and saying like, well, if I helped change one person, I could change a family, and I could change, a culture at their work, or, they could have a better interaction with somebody they stop in at the grocery store. And, the little things matter. So that's kind of what lit the fire under me. And I was still this dental hygienist. So that was kind of like my driving factor. And like, okay, I'll put my fear aside of being called cringy or getting made fun of for posting on it on social media. So I'm working out in this unfinished basement, like concrete walls. I called it the dungeon because it looked like a scene from Saw. Like that's the best way I could put it. It was like a creepy basement, like you can imagine. And I always poked fun at it because, if you make fun of it, it doesn't hurt as much if someone else makes fun of it. So that
Yeah.
was like, I'll beat them to the punch. It's the dungeon. I know this looks, a little crappy, but we're making it work. So I started posting like little clips on my story, and I remember I would post them and then delete them 20 minutes later because I was like, God forbid someone see this. That would be so embarrassing. um, and which is so funny because now I'm like shameless. I'll you know post whatever, but it's funny, and I think that it's definitely relatable because you always have that fear of someone from my high school is probably screenshotting this and sending it and saying how embarrassing. Um, so I started posting that, and at that point, everybody is working out from home if they're working out at all. But it picked up a little bit of traction where people were responding. They're like, "Hey, I really liked that. That was super helpful." So just getting that minimal feedback kind of emboldened me to be like, "Okay, well, we can keep doing this because then it's helping one person." And um, I also I kind of leaned into the fact that there was chaos everywhere. And because I had just finished 75 hard, I was oddly I had such great mental clarity. I felt in control. I wasn't anxious despite the uncertainty of my job and all of these things. And people were freaking out mentally also. So that opportunity to, have 30 minutes to escape and just get a good workout in and just kind of have a breath of fresh air where you're not teaching your kids from home for the first time, you're not working remotely. Um, it wasn't about just fitness. It was about just taking care of yourself, total
Mhm.
wellness. So that's where we got Lex J Wellness. But the women that were coming to me were also, I mean, generally, and I think it's definitely trending in the right direction now, but women historically haven't felt super confident going into a
Mhm.
gym. They haven't, I mean, you can be intimidated walking into a free weight section, with a bunch of guys that are lifting heavier and that they seem like they own run the place. You feel out of sorts. And not to mention when you have kids in the mix and you've got a full-time job, you have to, allocate childcare or,
Mhm.
spend that extra time to and from the gym. So we kind of took all the excuses out of it where it's like, okay, if you have dumbbells, then we can get a quick workout in at home, and then you can go back to doing all the things and fulfilling all the roles that you have. So it was just another opportunity that kind of a blessing in disguise that this crappy situation gave us where we were all in the same boat for the first time ever, but we could get it done in minimal equipment from the comfort of your own home. And Flex J Wellness was born, and June 1st was our first workout ever that I posted officially from a private Facebook group, June 1st of 2020. So we're coming up on 4 years of business just here in a few weeks.
It's amazing.
That
That's
was a
awesome.
long,
Yeah.
long
And this is Lexi.
introduction. Yeah. And that's me. I'm a chatterbox as
That's a
well.
that's a very big nutshell that we just
Yeah.
no, so I want to highlight some stuff because you definitely, and I don't want people to skim over any of the things that you brought up because you definitely mentioned some really key things. Um, but I do find it interesting that you played around in people's mouths. That guys, let me tell you, I have a very high respect for dental hygienists because I've seen some people's mouths, and you smell some people's mouths sometimes, and you're like, yeah, my respects for people that go in there and help clean them up as much as you can. Um, that's a whole nother, that's like basically a service job on healthcare kind of level. And so that's amazing that you were into that. And then I didn't realize that you came from a town of 400 people, didn't have a stoplight, kind of deal. And that's really awesome to know that you had that, that small town, basically small town mentality, and you change that into something that now you're affecting thousands and thousands of people all throughout the nation and beyond, because you wanted to take that step and you were able to help your dad. That's another big thing too. There's a lot of parents that listen to the podcast, and although you may not have children yet, which sounds like that's something that you want to have in your future, me being a dad and people that are parents, that can definitely pull at your heartstrings. What you were saying about, wanting to walk you down the aisle and you wanted your dad there. There's a special bond between a dad and his son. Usually it's a lot of butting heads and getting over each other's ego. But there's also a very special bond between a dad and his daughter. And that's something that can definitely give you the means to want to change the way that you were saying you wanted to provide your dad with that opportunity to recognize and not just take for granted that you were around, that he was around, that life was happening, but to actually take the reins and be in control there, because that really is a big deal for a lot of people. It's very, very easy to get into that rat race of life where you don't even realize you've gained those 100 pounds because you are just trying to do as much as you can and you're grabbing food whenever you can. And you don't even realize that what you're eating and what nutrition you're not putting in your body, what you need. And so I imagine your dad didn't set out to be overweight and have 4 heart attacks. If he did, yeah, we might need to, I
Yeah,
don't even know where to go there,
he
but
should be studied.
yeah, most people don't set out to have a heart attack, let alone 4. So kudos to him for surviving that. But also, that letter, I think the letter was a great tool that you used, because again, hitting on some points that you brought up, having that conversation could be hard because the person in that position doesn't want to be told that they're overweight, doesn't want to be told that they are, because they already know. I mean, if you're overweight, you know you're overweight. It hurts to stand up. It hurts to get up in the morning. It hurts to do normal tasks. You get tired. You get out of breath tying your shoes sometimes, depending on where you're at, and so they know that, but sometimes it's hard to take action on that. And then when you have your daughter, who, one, is your daughter, but 2, like someone that you would hope is looking up to you, now coming to you saying, Dad, this is kind of a problem. I can see that being hard. And as a dad, either your pride taking a hit, ego, or even just feeling sorry for yourself, that can create a hard conversation. So I love that you recognize that instead of getting emotional, having the interruptions, the arguments that it may cause, the tension that builds up because you're like, I need to talk to Dad. You're thinking about it all day. You're anxious, which creates an anxiety in the room, in the house, like all of this stuff. Instead, you were like, all right, I've tried all these different ways. I'm going to write a letter. And I think that goes, a lot of people don't think about that because there's texting and phone calls and all this other, sending memes to communicate things now, funny little reels. Writing a letter goes so far and it sticks around for a long time, and so I think that's a great thing that I wanted to highlight as well. Just an awesome tool for people if you're looking to communicate with someone in your life, a loved one, a dear one, that you want to help them get on their journey. And maybe you've tried little subtle hints here or tried to have the direct conversation, didn't work. A letter could be the opportunity for you. So I appreciate you sharing that. That's definitely a great point that you brought up.
Thank you.
And then just trying to chop things up that you brought up. So then your dad lost 100 pounds. And that's huge. Cause again, you've done 75 hard, and I imagine multiple times, but at least one time you see the difference in your life when you get on a roll. And whether that be vibrations that you're putting off, law of attraction, whatever it is that you want to call it, you're taking those steps to move forward. So your dad started taking control of his life, lost 100 pounds, and then got a promotion. and then his marriage was better. And it's weird how that happens, right? But it happens because he decided to take charge of his life, and then he became more capable of that promotion. And then on top of that, he's not just kind of sitting around. He's able to go and enjoy life with his wife that he's been married to for years, and probably became complacent in the marriage. I know a lot of us do that. You just take for
Yeah.
granted that you come home to somebody and you have someone there. You may not even talk to them for 2-3 days at a time, but they're there, and at that point you're
Yeah.
roommates. And so all of those things are key as well. Just how changing your life and becoming healthier can change so many other aspects of your life as well. You don't
Yeah.
have to go out and try and run marathons, but go ahead.
It really, it's just the tip of the iceberg. And I I get on a tangent about like the domino effect. It's just
Mm,
like that starting right there, and then it impacts your work, it impacts your family, it impacts your ability to live your life and your quality of
mm,
life. But it goes both ways, and it works for the positive and the negative. So a lot of times, when you're down bad and you're like, well, I just can't catch a break. When it rains, it pours, because
mhm,
now this is happening, and there were just like, I just cannot catch a break. But that oftentimes it doesn't happen accidentally. It's those
mm,
little deposits that you're putting in your bank account or your withdrawals.
mm,
And if you're continually neglecting your health, and you're continually neglecting your marriage and your relationships with your kids, and compromising on your work responsibilities, it seems like those are just little shortcuts that you're taking, that they don't affect things long term, but they really are. They're adding up
mm,
for the negative. And it's like, it gets to that point, but we oftentimes can't call ourselves out and look in the mirror and say, okay, well, I am the consequences of my own actions.
mhm, mhm, exactly. Yeah, it is interesting when you sit back and look at it. And when I hear people say I can't catch a break, um, or I wish, like they look at someone else and they're like, oh, I wish this was my life or something like that. I'm like, okay, but what have you done to accomplish that? What have you done to put that out there? And we kind of joke. My wife and I went to an event for her work last night where we watched Fall Guy, which was a hilarious movie, by the way. If you guys haven't gone to see Fall Guy, like Ryan Gosling, he's hilarious. And so anyway, we're sitting there beforehand. They're handing out prizes, and my wife was, she's always cold for some reason. She's gonna hate that I said that here on the podcast, but it could be 80 degrees in the house and she's cold. And so we're sitting there. She's like, "Man, I really could use my heated blanket right now." And she ended up winning a blanket as a prize. It was hilarious because I
That's
was like,
awesome.
"Look, you manifested it, right? You said it, it happened." But in all reality, that is something that does happen. Like when you think something, that's just the first step, right? And then you say it and or write it down or both, and then you start taking action on that. And so going back to your story where you thought the idea of, hey, I'm going to go work out in my dun gym because 2020 happened. And, I remember getting the email from my gym too, being like, hey, we're shutting down the gym, blah, blah, blah. And luckily I have a friend that had a home gym. So I just texted him. I was like, hey, this gym shut down. Can I start working out at your place? He was like, yes. So I love that you immediately pivoted and then you started attacking your fears and your anxieties of social media, putting yourself out there. That's really hard for a lot of people. But you went into it with the mindset of, I'm going to help somebody. I was able to help my dad. Now I'm going to go change other people's lives, even if it is just one person at a time, like you said. And putting it out there that way, you look back 4 years ago to where you are now. And did you ever imagine that you would be athlete of the year with First Form? Technically, within 3 years of starting that journey, you became athlete of the year. Like, did you think was that the exact vision that you had? You were going to be in headquarters making videos and such. I mean,
No, not at all. Actually, it's a weird route, and you might not know this either. So I live in Missouri, which is where
mhm,
First Form is, in Missouri, but I'm on the opposite side. And First Form, actually, Andy Frisella also owns supplement superstores, which are throughout Missouri as well. So for that reason, legionnaires or athletes or sponsor trainers, just like ambassadors of First Form, they had a they had a rule at that time that they weren't allowed to be in Missouri because it was kind of saturated because of supplement superstores. I didn't understand that. I didn't know that that was the rationale. But like I said, I had been just a huge
Mm-hmm.
proponent of the brand since 2018, I think is when I first started,
Mm-hmm.
just was exposed to the brand. So I actually applied to be a Legionnaire 3 times, starting back in 2018 when I was just a customer. And I love the brand. I listened to the podcast. I just loved what they stood for. I also love the products because I was a picky eater and I used to plug my nose and drink muscle milk. So this was the first one where I was like, oh, it's actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
But I applied to be a Legionnaire and I got declined 3 times. Um, so I started Lexi J Wellness shortly after like my third decline. And I remember like I just kind of thought, okay, well, if I'm not, I looked up to Claire Thomas so much, and I was like, okay, well, if you're not Claire Thomas, then you just can't be a Legionnaire. That was kind of what I thought
Mm-hmm.
that was like the qualifications. And, but I could still make a difference. So I started Lex J Wellness. I was kind of just assuming that I would just be a customer forever. And that was fine for me. Like I didn't have any hard feelings with the brand. I still wanted to support them and use their products. But my husband was
So
like, one
hold,
day,
I'm gonna pause you there real quick. Just guys, realize, so 2018 to now, that's 6 years journey, right? And you didn't really, so they didn't tell you that because you were in Missouri, that's the main reason why. They just said no, you're not accepted.
yeah, I just gotta, you can try again later. So I tried
Mm.
and struck
Man,
out, tried again, struck
that
out.
phrase reminds me of the old Sprite bottles every time you'd pop one open, and I never won anything off of those, but
Yeah.
try again later. But no, that, so for people just recognizing, like, Lexi's been into fitness for a while. She was a fit individual, and was rejected 3 times, and still took it as more of a challenge of like, I'm still going to accept, I love the brand. I'm bought into the company. I want to support, and I'm going to do everything I can to be better so that I can get accepted next time, instead of throwing up the middle finger and being like, all right, well, screw you guys, I'm going over here. Right. Cause I'm sure there's other companies that you could have worked with at this point. And so, you know, I just want to highlight that too for people and not just brush over that you were rejected 3 times and you kept coming back, and you took it as, well, I'm going to improve me so that I can provide more value to what they need, so that I
Yeah.
can support the brand, support the company, and help people more.
And because I align so well, one thing that I think that separates First Form from, other brands and other supplement companies and just other, just brands in general is that they
Mm.
put their core values at the forefront of what they do and they lead through that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember looking at those and seeing loyalty. And as I was starting to get traction in my own fitness journey, and I would get messages from other brands and things like that, and I loved First Form. They didn't know
Mm-hmm.
who I was, but I loved them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I remember thinking like, well, I mean, I'm not going to go anywhere, even if that's
Mm-hmm.
like, even if that love isn't reciprocated, I'm loyal to them. And I'm really proud of, now 6 years later, I can say that, I was unwavering before you knew who I was, before I
Mm-hmm.
had any sort of formal affiliation with the brand. It was genuinely just, I felt like I was aligned so well with what the mission was. So yeah, it's a funny thing. And after my third decline, my husband was like, well, one day they're going to wish that they had accepted
Mm-hmm.
you. And I was just starting Lexi J Wellness, and I just like laughed about it because that was just incomprehensible to me. I was like, I'm going to help,
Mm-hmm.
2 more people probably.
Yeah, no, and that's cool that you've got a supportive husband as well, and that he wasn't all butthurt for you, because sometimes spouses can get that way too, and I know I get that way sometimes for my wife. I'm like, oh, that, what a jerk, but
Yeah, absolutely.
the the whole idea behind it, like you were saying, loyalty. You didn't feel like you truly aligned with any other company. You wanted to stick with First Form because of the core values, and again, that's huge, because it's not that they were slapping you in the face, but it could be taken as that by a lot of people, like a slap in the face of, well, I'm building this and you still say I'm not good enough. Well, it's not necessarily that. You just didn't fit what they needed at the time. And you can also look at it as a test, right? And not that they were looking at it that way, but for you, it's like, again, you took it as a challenge to provide better or more value from what you had to First Form. And so I feel like a lot of people, they want to, overnight, within the first couple months, become this first form pro staff or first form athlete or sponsored trainer, and they don't realize that there's people like you that, and I think we were talking about this before we recorded, you didn't even realize you were you were an athlete until you got announced that you were the athlete of the year, right? So
Yeah.
um it, and that happens, sometimes, but the title in the company, what I'm realizing, the title's cool. It grabs attention and it designates that you have certain responsibilities, but the title isn't everything with First Form. Like,
No.
they look at you like, if you came up to me in the gym or you in the gym and someone didn't know who you were, they'd treat you the same. They
Oh,
they wouldn't
absolutely.
assume
Yeah.
that you're anybody until they get to know who you are. You don't walk around with a badge on your, on your shirt saying, "Oh, I'm an athlete." That's just not how First Form works, and I absolutely love that about the company. You have more responsibilities than I do in your position, so I don't envy the random trips to New York, but it's just one of those things, guys, that if you ever do want to get involved with First Form, either as a legionnaire, which I encourage you, if you've been using the products and you have something that you're trying to build, to go and apply for that, to be a bigger part of the company. But a lot of the time, it really is you building your brand, building your whatever you're doing to help the community, and having First Form there along the way and providing value in a way that's different than the person next to you. Because as we do that together, we cast that net, we're able to help more people. Right. And that's
Agreed.
basically that's what I've noticed in the 4 years that I've been with First Form Outdoors. It's very much that way. So with that, you were done gym. You started there. You started Lexi J Wellness, and then where did you go from there?
So I was my dental office still stayed open. And to your point, mouths can be so gross. The school I
Mm,
went to though was a free clinic. So we had like days where we took in the homeless and they
mm-hmm.
got their first dental cleaning of their life. And they were coming in
Wow.
40 years old, never
Mm,
ever been to the dentist. Some of them had not brushed their teeth in a decade. So
mm-hmm.
if I got through school, like getting to private practice was a breeze. These people were easy. Um, um, so I was still working as a dental hygienist. I actually lived an hour from my job, so
Mm,
I was commuting an hour to my 9 to 5. But I started
wow.
recording Lex J wellness workouts and the structure of the workouts because I I wanted this to be something that was like I could meet you wherever you are,
Mm-hmm.
whether and I had in mind, so mind you, I was very fit when I started. Um, but I also was thinking about like my aunt and my mom and,
Mm,
like people in my life specifically. I had to imagine that person, could they do this and they could get an effective workout and they didn't feel like they couldn't keep up or whatever. So I had to structure it in a way that I could still get an effective workout being relatively fit, but also someone that could start for the very first time and they could benefit from it as well.
mm-hmm.
So I felt like doing it the structure that I do, where it's more time based, like we're going to move for this amount of time, we're going to rest for this amount of time, and then we can scale it in between. You can adjust your weight, you can adjust your intensity. So no matter where you are, we'll do this together, but we'll all get an
Yeah.
effective workout. So they're 28 minutes long, full length, and you're doing the workout right alongside me. Which is nice because it's kind of been my digital diary over the past 4 years. Like I'll show up and I'll tell you about my day or what I've got going on, or, you know, if I had a bad day, if I didn't want to be there, if I was having a bad body image day, which I think that especially in our community, it just makes it more tight knit because I'm in their living room or I'm in their basement or garage or wherever they're working out. We hang out for 30 minutes a day. So then when they do come to an event and we get to meet each other, it's like we've
Mm,
been chatting back and forth forever.
mm-hmm.
But I recorded, so I would get up early in the morning, record the workouts at about 4 a.m. And then I would get ready, go to my day job, travel an hour, do that. And then in between patients,
Mm,
I was like responding back to clients and emails and all that stuff, trying to, facilitate that community. And then I would do the same thing on the way home and just kind of burning the candle at both ends, but it was so fulfilling to be able to make a difference in these people's lives. And I did that for about 11 months before I went full time Lexi Wellness, which was a scary thing. And I felt like it was 11 months is such, such a fast thing in
Hmm.
business terms. But at that point, it just felt like I had been doing it forever. And I remember feeling like leading up to that, like that was going to be the most freeing day. Like it was going to be, just all sunshine and rainbows. And I woke up that morning, I recorded the workout, and then I just had so much anxiety. And I was like, I think I'm making the wrong decision. I'm going to walk back to the office with my tail between my legs in a month, just saying I couldn't hack it. And I just knew that I was freaked out. So a lot
Hmm.
of people are like, they ask, how do you know when it's the right time? And I weighed the pros and cons of like, is the time I'm spending away from Lexi J Wellness worth it? And eventually I just felt like it wasn't, like I could contribute more, but it was not 100%, belief this was going to work. It was really one of those, bets on myself. But I remember just being so anxious that day and thinking like, I'm so scared. I just messed up. I'm going to
Hmm.
come beg for my job back. So I did that. I went full time about after 11 months of Lex J Wellness and working in my dental office. And now, fast forward, I have a team of about 6 of us, and we work in the first Phorm app, one-on-one tracking macros. I still record 6 workouts a week, and we're just building this domino effect.
That's amazing. So what year did you go full time Lexi J Wellness?
2021.
Okay. So wow.
Yeah,
Okay, that was a quick turnaround.
yeah,
So 2020, so 3 years later now you have 6 team members that are helping. So I mean, look guys, hiring one person is scary. Okay, for people out there that I have yet to hire someone because I don't need it yet. I'm not cool enough, haven't expanded that far yet. But hiring one person, and like, because I've considered it for certain jobs, it can get scary because you're relinquishing some control of your name, your brand, to someone that you may not know very well. They seem to be qualified, but you haven't seen them, and so you don't want them burning certain relationships that you have, especially when with something so sensitive like fitness, and helping people with their tracking, and they trust you with getting their health dialed in. Like that can be really scary, and not to mention 6 other team members. So on one end, that's amazing. That is outstanding that you've been able to expand that quickly, but at the same time that can be terrifying as a business owner. So it sounds like you've got a good crew behind you, and you're doing pretty awesome.
yeah. It is scary. Like, one, like you said, Lex J Wellness is my baby. I think
Hmm.
about this nonstop. And I never was like very business oriented. And now that's all I want to talk about. That's all I want to, think about. I
Hmm.
wake up and I go to sleep thinking about ways that we can improve and ways that we can change and what the future looks like. So no, I understand that no one is going to care about it like I do. It would be unhealthy for us for an outsider to care about it to the extent that I do. But
Yeah.
I it's like it's trusting someone to
Hmm.
be an extension of you. And also it's a huge responsibility to understand. I think that the biggest driver for me is that now I understand that I'm helping provide for their families. Like, most of them
Hmm.
are established, all but one of them have children, and I'm a key role. And if I don't make this work, then their kids are affected. And it's
Hmm.
like those things, the domino effect, where if I don't do my job, it just doesn't end with me failing. It's going to impact them. And
Yeah.
that's a heavy weight to hold, but it's also just, I mean, there's nothing that's going to drive you like other people holding you accountable and you being responsible for the success of their family also. So now I want to be able to put them in a good position and make them feel comfortable and stuff. So that's a huge driver for me, and that's exciting. But yeah, it's a scary thing. And we're working on adding another member to the team. One of my girls is she's going to phase out after this next month because she's going to homeschool her kids. So we're working on finding a replacement. And it is hard just finding someone that aligns well value wise and that is suited for
Hmm.
the job and meshes well. And especially with a small team, like when you have a corporation and you have hundreds of individuals, one person being exchanged, isn't a huge deal breaker, but in a team of 6 or 7, like that's a crucial part. One person makes a really
Mm,
big difference, and they impact culture, and there's just a shift. So it's a big thing that's where my focus is right now, just making sure that we have, I do my due diligence and finding someone that's going to be suitable and adds value to the team and to the community.
yeah, no, for sure. That's amazing. The fact that you've got all those people on your shoulders, that's a huge burden as well, but also exciting. The fact that to think that a girl from a town of 400 people, no stoplight, is now literally providing for 6 families plus your own, so 7 families. Uh, that's crazy. That is crazy. Awesome transformation, and you can't really take a picture of that per se, like you can with your fitness transformation side by side. But that blows my mind as much as your fitness transformation has blown my mind as well, and your mentality behind it, all of those things. But the business aspect too is just, it's huge. And there's a lot to be said about. So I think Andy put something up on his story today. He was driving into headquarters and he was like, "Oh yeah, I sure wish I had stuck with my 9 to 5." Oh, you saw it too? So he's like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I sure
I
wish I."
love
He's
when you
like
post
driving his
that.
Ferrari into the headquarters and he's driving past his 3 buildings. He's like, "Yeah, I sure wish I had stuck with my 9 to 5 job that I had." Like, yes, I still have that little medicine shop or the vitamin shop.
Yeah, cooking vitamins in
But
your bathtub.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh man. But no, that's awesome. So I do want to pivot to, you also went through not just a business transformation and a mental transformation, but a physical transformation from 2020 to now. If you could give us just a brief synopsis of why you went from the mentality that you had, which seemed to be more of that, I'm just going to deem it, and maybe this wasn't it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but almost that like Victoria's Secret style where it's like girls need to be skinny and fit in certain clothing kind of deal, to now where you're like, I'm okay here because here is healthier, I'm stronger, and I'm feeling way better. So correct me if I'm wrong on that first thought, but I've seen a lot of women that have that mentality of, well, I need to be skinnier so I can fit into these certain clothings. And that is healthy. That's fit. And in my opinion, that's not really it. So give us a
Yeah.
brief synopsis of that. And then your top 3 reasons why you've chosen First Form and First Form Outdoors, uh, your top 3 reasons for that company.
Okay. So yes, I wanted nothing more than to be skinny. Truly. When I got married, that was the goal. I just wanted to be skinny in the wedding dress. It was so superficial and that was that was the end goal. I just
Mhm.
wanted to be skinny when I walked down the aisle. I didn't care really how it happened. So I am not a runner whatsoever. I've always said, I envied people that enjoyed running, but I forced myself, more of a mental challenge. I'm like, I'm
Mhm.
going to make this. I
Mhm.
was not in a very good mindset, but I've always just been too stubborn to, like accept that. So
Mhm.
even in a very immature state, I decided I was going to force myself to become a runner. I would, just be on the treadmill forever. And I got super skinny. Mission accomplished. I was skinny in my wedding dress. And I'm 5'8", so I'm a taller woman, comparatively, and I was about 130. And I was very, very lean. And I remember even standing on 130, for whatever reason, was the number that in my head was going to be like happiness. I was going to step on the scale and just like problems would dissipate. And I think that women in general, we all have that number for whatever reason. I don't know why. 130 for me was the number where I was like, well, that'll certainly make me happy. And spoiler alert, I stepped on the scale, I saw 130 and I was like, 128 would probably be better. If
Mhm.
I could be 130, then I could probably,
Mhm.
be a little bit happier, just less. And I don't know like what pivoted, where maybe it was just like I don't enjoy running. I'm not I should enjoy exercise. I something I've always liked to do, and I'm literally just forcing myself to do this, that I hate the process. I don't get that runner's high after like this kind of sucks. Um and I just slowly transitioned out from, cardio only to just strength training. And I am now I'm 170 pounds, so I'm 40 pounds heavier. And one, anytime I talk about my weight on social media, it like gets a lot of traction. It goes
Mm,
viral, and it's funny because it gets a lot of really good reinforcement from women where
mhm,
they're like, it's not just women are very sensitive about weight. So
mm,
when I always like to play this game with like my guy friends and stuff, and I'll ask them to guess how much I weigh, and I'm like the only lady that you can talk to about. Like I'm the only one that you can probably play this game with. So don't go
mhm,
like this is not a bar game you're gonna play, because they always think I'm a lot less because I'm
mhm,
fit, and I just
mhm,
I have a lot of muscle, and
mhm.
muscle is less dense, so I am not what 170 I imagined to be. If you would have told
Yeah.
me in college that I was going to be 170, I would have been like, oh my gosh, I am morbidly obese. And just because I was like 130 or bust. So here I am, 40 pounds heavier, and I am so much healthier. I'm also the strongest I've ever been. My health markers are great. And I'm like, I like the way that I look. I look strong. I look fit. I fit in very similar size clothing that I did before. And that was something that I just couldn't hardly wrap my head around, because if the number on the scale was up, then certainly I was going to be way different sizing.
Mhm,
And it's just that body composition component where now I am training that I always talk to my clients about this, but this is my goal. I don't have like, I'm not training specifically for a race or some end date, but I just want to be able to do whatever I want to do for the rest of
mhm,
my life, for the remainder of my life. If someone like, if I want to go hiking, or if my husband wants to, you know, run a 5K, I could do that reasonably. If my niece and nephews want to play kickball, I can do that without pain. If I need to, help my best friend move a couch, I could do that. And I want to be able to live my life without physical constraints, and that's what I want my clients to be as well. Um, and that's just a game changer. And I think that just openly talking about that number that you're fixating on is not going to bring you the happiness, first of all, but also it's not always the best indicator of your overall well-being. It's not
yeah.
always the best indicator of your progress in general, because there are just so many other factors that play in. And certainly if you are in a spot where you need to lose 100 pounds, the scale is super, super helpful. And that's a good marker of your progress. But when you're in a spot where you're relatively like in a healthier weight range, we need to start looking into different progress markers. We need to talk about how your clothes are fitting. We need to make sure you're
Mhm,
assessing your progress photos. We need to talk about if the weight you're using or the intensity that you're going throughout your workouts is changing, if your pain and
mhm,
your sleep and your energy. There's so many factors that we can take into,
mhm.
and you just can't let 3 digits on your bathroom floor determine whether you're going to have a good day or not, because so
Right.
many of us live our lives that way, and it's unproductive, and it's just not a realistic marker of your overall health. So
I
I'm
love
standing
that.
40 pounds heavier than I was previously, and I'm so much healthier, so much stronger,
Mhm,
and I just would not have believed it. So I'm always a big advocate of just sharing that, because I've lived it. I and I think that it's important that, the smallest version of you is not always going to be the healthiest.
Exactly. And there's a lot of things that go into that, and for some reason, and I personally don't understand it, um the skinny mindset, just because I'm like, well, if you're skinny, you're frail. That's what I've always looked at it as. And I'm along the lines with you, where with running, it's I don't get the runner's high. My wife does. I'm like, you're yeah, no. Like I
No.
just die. I just die afterwards, right? I just fall and just lay there. But but the whole getting down to being skinny, it's like I also don't know where that came from, but if you look at like a 40-pound dumbbell versus 40 pounds of feathers, there's a there's a huge difference in size. And what you've done is, as you've added, yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yep. The 5 pounds of fat versus 5 pounds of muscle, and which one's more capable too. And also there's a lot of studies out there now showing too that the more muscle mass that you have, dense, lean muscle, the healthier you will be and the longer you will live. And that comes from, again, there's a bunch of other things that go into it. But basically, what you've done is not only have you increased muscle mass, but I'm imagining, and from my understanding of biology is and anatomy, when you increase your strength training, you're also increasing your bone density, because your bones are what your muscles are attached to. And if they're constantly being pulled on, they're going to increase density. So you increase density, bone mass, and muscle mass, and you're not really going wide like that, the feathers. the 40 pounds of feathers, but you've gotten more dense in that 40 pounds in there, which also for women specifically, osteoporosis is a huge issue as you get older. And so adding that strength training in now will allow you to have that bone density as you get into your older years, and you're not going to have to, well, I'm not a doctor, I can't say this, but don't take this advice as a doctor, but you will more than likely have less issues with bone problems as you get older if you include strength training in. Now, you don't have to go squat 400 pounds and all this other stuff, but it's some kind of weight training, resistance training is going to help with your bones and your muscles. And in turn, like what you were saying, you're fitting in very similar clothing, 40 pounds heavier, because you didn't expand really this way. You were able to get more dense and stronger,
Yeah.
and you feel better. You've got more energy. Your metabolism also in turn goes up because you have more muscle mass. So there's so many things that go into what you just explained. And I love that you had that mindset shift, because I mean, you hit a number on a scale and you're like, I could do more. I could do more. I can
Yeah, the
cut out another
goalpost is
100,
always going to
200
move.
calories. Yeah, exactly. And then you're starving, and then you're miserable, and then you're hangry all the time. There's so many other negatives to that. So that's awesome. That is really cool to see. And I definitely would not have guessed that you were 170 pounds.
It's a fun
That's
game. I like hearing
yeah.
people's guesses.
Yeah, I bet there's a lot of guys that are nervous when you ask them.
I know, and I always preface it. I'm like, I'm the only woman you can play this game with.
Yeah. Don't go guessing ages and weights, guys. That's not a
Yeah.
good thing. But also, again, talking about beauty, for women, like having more muscle tone also helps with your skin. You're able, that helps tighten the skin up a little bit as well. And I also I don't know any guys that really are truly attracted to their wives if they were skinnier, like skinny in that mindset of, and so that's what I'm saying. Like, I've had people tell me, like, my wife wants to get skinnier for me. And I'm like, I don't want that, so I don't know where that mindset comes from. Wherever we find out that came from, maybe Victoria's Secret just needs to like go away or something. I don't know whatever that was,
Something like
whatever
that.
created that, but it needs to stop, because your way of showing health and fitness, and a lot of the women that are involved in First Form go about it with that mindset of, let's have longer lives, let's enjoy our lives longer, and to be more toned and fit. You're not going to get bulky from lifting weights. If anything, you're going to feel better, you're going to be healthier, and you're going to look more toned. So
Yeah, it's funny because it is a common fear of women that they're going to get bulky. And I was like, you're never going to wake up one day and be all Arnold Schwarzenegger. And if you were, there would be a lot more men walking around looking that way. Because if getting bulky that easy was, or if getting
yeah,
bulky was that easy, then there would be a lot of guys that look that way. But
yeah.
a body with more muscle burns more calories. Like you'd said, your metabolism is raised, and a lot of people don't understand that, but muscle is just harder to maintain. It eats up a lot more energy simply at rest. Having more muscle now, I'm burning calories sitting here more than I would be, before, when I didn't have very much muscle, just because it takes more maintenance. So then it raises my metabolism. And it's just, I genuinely do feel so much better. But we always talk, like you had talked about, just the longevity aspect of it. And it was something that I was speaking on in our, one of our workouts. Like I said, it's my digital diary. I'm talking the whole 28 minutes. Like, I am a yapper to my core. So it helps the workout fly by, just because I'll say whatever's on my mind. But I was talking about that and just saying, if I want you to be able to do whatever you want to do forever. And I had one of my clients reach out, and she was like, I don't have any, I don't plan to be a fitness model or anything. But she said, I just don't want it to ever come to a point where my kids don't invite me to something because they know mom can't keep up. She said, that's something I have with my parents. And she said, I don't want to ever be excluded from something because I can't keep up. And I think that's the simplest way to put it. But I just love that. And I'm like, you want to be an active participant in the lives of the people that you care about for as long as you can.
Exactly. And that's what's going to stick with your kids, your grandkids. They're going to remember what you were able to do. they're not necessarily going to remember the times where they sat on the couch and just watched TV or just sat around and did nothing, right? It's unfortunate, but that's where a lot of, grandparent time ends up. And I definitely don't want that for me. And, my wife and I have already said, whenever our kids get older and decide to have kids, we're going to be the grandparents that are like swooping by, picking the kids up, taking them off and being like, you guys have to work, we don't, so see ya, kind
Yeah.
of deal. Just that's what we want to do. So
Yeah, your kids
that's
are
amazing.
your kids are likely never going to ask how much you weigh, but they will ask you to go play catch with them, or they'll go ask you
Mhm.
to ride bikes with them, and they'll remember those answers. But
Oh yeah.
whatever that number on the scale is, it's not going to factor in. But if your health and your functionality inhibits you, then that's going to be telling. That's what they're going to remember.
Yep, exactly. And then for all the dads out there, let me tell you guys, to be able to raise the standard for who your daughter's going to marry or who she's going to be attracted to, y'all better be working out. Like,
That's right.
because they pay attention to that stuff. But yeah, so with that, give us your top 3, whether it be anything from the products to the community to the app to anything about First Form or First Form Outdoors, which I keep reiterating this to people that are listening in. If this is your first time listening, I put why First Form Outdoors in the title because I'm trying to highlight that branch of the company, but it is a branch of First Form. It is not something separate. It is not a different entity. First Form and First Form Outdoors are one and the same. We're just trying to reach the outdoors man and woman, whether that be hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, boating, just wanting to go out and enjoy the sun. Whatever it is outdoors, that's what we're trying to reach out to people so they can enjoy it and experience more of that. So with that being said, anything with First Form, your top 3 reasons why First Form is the person or the group that you are loyal to.
Yeah. So I mean, I come back to the core values, and every company has core values, but the fact that theirs are prominent and actually you can see them reflected in the people that are in those positions, like in the positions of leadership, and you can point to them. And I believe that they embody them. They add to the community based on them.
Mm-hmm.
They remove from the community based on them. And that's not something that you can say for a lot of brands. It's not something you can say for a lot of companies. And it's, as a business owner, it's hard to do. It's one thing to write those, fancy words that you can put up on your wall, but it's another thing to, hire and fire and make decisions based on them. And I think the First Form does a really good job with that. And it comes back, I guess, well, in no particular order, but I started listening to Andy's podcast. And I think part of it also was him talking about his journey himself and being overweight. I saw a little bit of like my dad's journey and him being just embarrassed and afraid to fail and talking about how he had no willpower around food. And I just remember my dad saying, like, I went to bed every night and I would say, I'll start tomorrow. I'll lose the weight tomorrow. I'll make better decisions tomorrow. And then he said I would wake up and I would do it all over again. And I just
Mm-hmm.
didn't feel like I had any control over that. And I think that I saw some of my dad in that. And then I saw someone that also changed his life and has now led so many other people, millions of people, to change their lives as well. And so I really connected with him, and I feel so crazy grateful that I'm in a position where like I can call that man a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really unique, but yeah, it's special. And I just believe in him and what he says he's going to do. Like, there are few people that have so much, you know, absolute faith in what they do and have given me no reason to believe otherwise. And I have that faith in him. And then
That's awesome.
third, I genuinely, like I said, I was a picky eater, and
Mm.
I used to be very deficient in protein. Now I'm like easy peasy, but I used to plug my nose and drink muscle milk or whatever I could get, from Walmart. And I genuinely like the taste of the protein that got me in. I used to be a Cinnamon Toast Crunch or CTC and
Mm-hmm.
chocolate milkshake girl. And now I love them all. So the products, you just can't beat them.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Then I'm going to put you on the spot because first, I would agree with you. Anyone that's been out there and has tried different protein powders, sometimes you get the bubble guts, sometimes you've got other issues going on other than just the taste. None of that happens with First Form. I've even had people that were supposedly allergic to lactose or to to whey, and then they tried Formula One that has whey in it, and they were fine. So it wasn't the whey; it was the way the whey was processed. Lots of ways, but yeah, there's that where it's low temperature processed in a very high level facility that's constantly. And people ask too, why are certain flavors out? Well, they take so much care in the process that they can't just always have every flavor available. They have to, like, to change flavors, they literally have to shut down an entire line of processing, clean it out, deep scrub it, do all the sanitization, and then they have to start it back up to get the line going. So it's not just we're just going to do some CTC and then Fruit Loop in here or Loop to Fruit in here, any of that. It's literally a full shutdown of that line, and then they have to guess, basically based on numbers, how much they're going to be processing of that next flavor, and they have to do the whole process again. So with that being said, your top 2 flavors of Formula One.
Okay. They are relatively new. I have them. So salted peanut butter and cafe mocha are the heavy hitters right now, and they're both brand like they're the most recent ones. Before that, I was root beer float and chocolate mint cookie, and I swore by those 2. I didn't think that anyone would take the crown, but then salted PB and cafe mocha they're outstanding.
So if you were to mix 2 flavors, what's your favorite mixture?
Okay, it's only seasonal. Chocolate milkshake and Magical Charms taste like s'mores.
All right. I have to
But you
try
guys
that. I
gotta
have
wait
not
until
tried that.
next spring for Magical Charms if you
Yeah,
didn't
I have a
stock
couple
up.
scoops left of Magical Charms, so I might have to try that one. But
Give it a try.
have you tried root beer float and vanilla?
Is that the one that supposedly tastes like Dr. Pepper? Or
No.
maybe
So
that's
the one
root
that
beer
tastes
float
like
and
Dr. Pepper,
cherry.
yes, then it does. That one does for sure.
I haven't
But
done
and
that,
that's
but I've
seasonal.
heard that.
Yeah. So this summer when you get your cherry lime, you're gonna have to try that one. But the the root beer float and vanilla just tastes like an extra creamy vanilla or root beer float. That's really what it is.
I could be on board
And
for that.
then strawberry and peanut butter.
I really want to try that. I am so selfish with them. I don't even want to compromise on my peanut butter taste right now because I am obsessed. Like I want all
Okay.
peanut butter.
Well,
But
right.
that does sound really good.
Okay. So yeah, sacrifice 1 scoop and it won't be a sacrifice. You're going to be hooked, because I usually pick on Jake for his flavor tastes because he eats the weirdest crap, guys. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
my goodness, if he created a freaking food book, you'd be like, what is this? But those 2 together are awesome. So definitely you're gonna have to try that next time we get some strawberry in.
I love a peanut butter and jelly. So I mean you can't beat that.
Exactly. Well, cool. Well, Lexi, thanks so much for hopping on today. I really do appreciate you sharing your journey and giving us, the details of what you've gone through. And if people want to find you, where can they find you at?
Lexi J Wellness on Instagram, and then I believe I am like Lexi.J Wellness on TikTok, but Instagram is definitely my primary social media platform.
Awesome. And then if they want to join your group and get in on these yap sessions for the 30 minutes.
Want access to my digital diary? You can go to lexijwellness.com.
Cool. Awesome. I'm going to link all those down below, guys, for you guys to check them out. Again, share this with whoever is out there in your life, especially women. Obviously, Lexi could go either way, men or women, for you to listen in on this. But for women specifically that need a good reason why skinny isn't necessarily the best, share this with them, because Lexi has gone through that journey. She's very personal with it. Send them her information as well through Instagram so they can reach out to her and talk to her and see what they need to do to get on their journey. Because we all want, the women in our lives are very special people, and we want them to live longer. We want them to experience more, whether that be with kids, grandkids, or even just selfishly with us as their spouses. We want to experience more with them. So let's help them out. And last thing, guys, don't try and coach your wives. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. So here's a great resource for you to send to your wife and say, hey, I found this amazing episode of Lexi. Lexi's just an awesome person that can help you out. Not saying that you need help, but yeah, with that being said, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Follow along down below, subscribe, go check out Lexi's stuff. And like I always say, get out, live your life, and love it.
Wow, what an awesome episode. Lexi has a wealth of knowledge and experience for people out there interested in knowing more about her journey, speaking with her directly. Maybe you have a woman in your life that maybe needs an example of how you can go from a small town to where Lexi is at this point, some help maybe in their fitness journey. Spouses, guys, trust me, I understand not coaching your spouse. Sometimes it's just not worth it. You want them to get the best help possible, but you're not the one for it, and you don't want to cause those arguments, let alone pushing them further away from their fitness journey. So reach out to Lexi, reach out to her team. They'll be more than happy to help you. Definitely appreciate you guys tuning in. Subscribe to the channel if you like this, the Why First Phorm Outdoors series. Go back and listen to other episodes that we referenced today, and join us in the First Phorm Outdoors Facebook group, guys. Trust me, you want to be in that group. I'll leave all those links down below. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And of course, get out, live your life, and love it.